Good morning. It is August. No, it is September. September 3rd at about 11:15 in the morning. Wow, where'd August go? August is gone. September is here. And my name is Larry Cedar, and I am back with you for another session on scanning, spelled Sqanning. Scanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. The incremental release of muscular tension. That's all we're doing. It's so simple. And we do it all the time. Anytime you make a fist, 3, 2, 1, release it, you've released muscular tension. You've incrementally released muscular tension. It's very difficult. I suppose it's possible. I suppose there are yogis out there or Zen Buddhists who have practiced so many years, they're capable of completely releasing muscular tension. But we here in the West, we're not so familiar with it. We possibly might have more success by incrementally letting go of small amounts of muscular tension. And the reason it works so well is because anyone can release a small amount of muscular tension. And I say that anyone because it's just a matter of making that decision to let go. And that's the start of the process. And so in scanning, we don't devalue even the smallest amount of muscular release. Muscular release is a form of what I call expansion, which is the opposite of contraction. Squeeze your hands together. That's contraction. 3, 2, 1, release. That's expansion. So Thaddeus Golas, on whom I base this practice, he wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, said there were two basic processes in the universe: contraction, squeeze your hands together, and expansion. And read more about it in the book, very short volume, terrific. Everyone should read it. It's just a really simple way of looking at the universe. And so when we contract, we bring things together. When we expand, we let things fall apart, shall we say. We let them go. Muscular release is a form of expansion because in life we tend to contract. That's the way we get things done. We become overly contracted. We become tense, obsessed, worried, physically racked with pain or discomfort. We tend to overly contract. We can solve that problem by expanding, doing the opposite. So in life there's basically a continuum, contraction, expansion, and we move between those two states. When we're overly contracted, we can reverse that process. We can solve that problem by expanding. Incremental muscular release is one way to do it. And that's it. I like to sum up the process as briefly as possible before every session. But having said that, if you have any questions in the course of this session, the reason I do these sessions live is so that if you have a question, you can type it in and I'll answer it right here on the spot. I'll replay these sessions, I'll repost them, but then you can't ask me any questions live. Although feel free to write me anytime if you have any questions about this technique. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the basic, what I call preliminary steps of scanning. There's 3 basic preliminary steps, which we're going to go through kind of quickly, and then we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, which is the actual work on incremental muscular release. We call it scanning. It's with a Q, just to be different, but we call it that in reference to the word scanning, where we're going to scan our body looking for pockets of muscular tension. That's all this process is. It's so simple. You say, well, what will this do for me? Well, you'll find out when you practice it. But for me, and this is something I do for me, even these public sessions, I use them as an opportunity to practice scanning. For me, they take me away from my contracted state, which tends to be worrisome, obsessed about things, feeling compelled, having senses of compulsion that I have to do something, not being able to relax. It takes me out of that state into a place of nothingness, peace, emptiness, still, quiet, calm. So as you see, I like to talk a lot. And so this process takes me away from that and allows me to experience silence and the beauty that all that entails. Stillness and silence are the opposite of action and noise, talking, doing. So we try to move ourselves into that expanded state. So we're going to start with those preliminary steps, as we always do. First thing we do is squeeze our hands together tight. Really grab your hands together tight. You have control over this, complete control. You're not going to hurt yourself. But you will be able to feel what it is to contract. Again, 2 basic processes in the universe: contraction, expansion. Now you are feeling what it is to contract. And we're doing that to create a real strong sensation of contraction. This is a feeling process, scanning. So I want you to start to feel things and identify through feeling these concepts. So this is what it feels like to contract and squeeze really hard. Okay, so it's great. It's strength, it's power. It's what allows you to do things, to get things done. Look, my fingers are turning red. So it's wonderful until we become overly contracted, and then it starts to feel bad. And generally speaking, when you're overly contracted, you feel bad. So if you ask, how do I know I'm overly contracted? Well, you'll feel bad. You won't feel happy. You'll be worried. You'll be anxious. You'll be racked with pain or discomfort or stiffness or tightness or anxiety. You'll be overly contracted, and you'll instinctively want to expand. So we can do that now. On the count of 3, you're just going to relax all the tension in your hands. Completely let it go. 3, 2, 1, and release. Okay, so that's expansion. Drop your hands to your sides. Take a deep breath. So now we've begun. There's an old joke. What's the best thing about hitting yourself in the head with a hammer? And the answer, of course, it feels so good when you stop. Same with this. What's the best thing about inducing a strong state of contraction? Well, it feels so good when you expand. And I want you to feel that. I want you to feel that sensation of expansion and that sense of letting go, that sense of openness, that sense of relief, that you no longer are having to exert yourself. You're not having to use any energy. We've gone from a contracted state into an expanded state. So we start this way so you can feel that contrast very, very clearly. Okay, so let's do it again. Squeeze your hands together tight, really feel it. That's contraction. So identify it. You know, the way to learn something is to clearly identify it. If you're having an issue of any kind, when you can clearly identify the issue, then you can deal with it. So we're identifying what it is to be highly contracted and really squeeze tight, okay? And again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make the decision to do the opposite of contraction, that's expand. On my count, 3, 2, 1, release all the tension. Let your hands drop to your sides. Take 3 deep breaths. And just sit for 15 seconds in absolute stillness and silence. So through these very definitive physical actions, we're bringing ourselves into a higher consciousness of the difference between contraction and expansion. We went from extremely contracted to highly expanded. We took deep breaths because breaths are expansive by nature. That's the second part of this preliminary phase of scanning. First was squeeze release. The second was deep, deep breaths. Breaths are expansive by nature. If you've been contracted, you may find yourself sometimes very tense or nervous or worried about something. You'll catch yourself not breathing, literally not breathing. Because that's what we do, we contract. When you go into battle or any typical physical activity, we tend to hold our breath. We're contracting, we're bringing things together. Again, nothing wrong with contraction, that's how we get things done. But when you want to expand, you'll notice that if you do the opposite of contraction, deep breaths, that'll bring you into that expanded state. Squeeze, release, see what that feels like, to release all the tension in your hands. Take 3 deep breaths, and then we sit in stillness and silence. And we sat for 15 seconds this time, but each time we're going to do it a little bit longer. We're extracting ourselves from our contracted state, rather forcefully, through very definitive physical acts. Squeeze, release, deep breaths, stillness and silence. You say, well, how is stillness and silence a deliberate act? Well, think about how rarely in the course of a day we sit in absolute stillness and silence. And I mean not move a muscle like this. We rarely do that. In fact, if you see someone doing that, you think it's weird. If you've ever seen someone just sitting like this, like a mannequin, when you go to those street fairs, it's weird. We rarely do it. So you're taking a definitive action. You're making a decision to not move a muscle. You're just going to stop moving. You're going to stop doing. You're going to stop contracting. You're going to move yourselves towards expansion. Stillness is the opposite of action, which is contraction. And we're silent, of course, because words and thought are contractions. So we're going to stop that process. Now your mind might continue to spin. You might continue to have thoughts like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. I'm so bored. I wish I could move. That's your mind continuing to want to contract. When you're in a contracted state, you want to keep contracting. It feels good. Contraction begets contraction. So it's difficult sometimes to stop. So we take these strong physical steps to extract ourselves from that contractive process and just begin to move ourselves into a more expanded state. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It bears repeating. It's very important to remember. You cannot contract and expand at the same time. You cannot contract and expand at the same time. So any steps you take of an expansive nature move you away from contraction. So never be discouraged if you don't feel completely relaxed after 5, 10 minutes, half an hour of this practice. The objective is to move yourself, to move the dial. Doesn't matter how much, and sometimes you'll get further than others. But what we want to reinforce is that any amount of expansion has value. And we do it incrementally because we want to reinforce the idea that the smallest change is a change. So let's do it again. Squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. Okay, so see what that feels like. Again, this is a feeling process, not a thinking process. You'll never read a book about this technique, never. There's nothing to be read about. It's just the matter of experiencing it. Contraction, tight, tight, tight. On my count, you're going to release all the tension in your hands. That's an expansive act. You're going to let them drop to your sides. You're going to take 5 deep, expansive breaths, and then we're going to sit for a full 60 seconds in absolute stillness and silence. But continue to breathe. And again, that's not a frozen move. You're not like holding a position. You've stopped moving. That's all for 60 seconds. So squeeze, tight, tight, tight. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that difference? Pressure's off. No energy being exerted. The blood flows back into your hands. You're exerting no energy. Let your hands drop to your sides. 5 deep, expansive breaths followed by 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence, but continuing to breathe. 5 deep breaths. Here we go. Last one. 60 seconds. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. Now, I'm a very, I guess what you could call a fidgety person. I tend to want to move, to do, to think. It's very difficult for me to settle down. It's one of the reasons I developed this technique. And you may have the same experience. You may find yourself sitting and going, this is really hard. I can't move. I can't think. My mind is asking all these questions. Why am I doing this? How much longer do I have to go? I'm thinking about how I've got to go water the lawn. Oh, the car's running funny. Oh, I've got to go cash that check. Oh, I got to get a job. Yeah, all these thoughts will come through your mind, and that's perfectly fine. One of the great things about sitting in stillness and silence is you can watch yourself. You can watch how your mind works, but you can do it as an outside observer. Instead of being caught up in it and not really fully conscious of the way you work, you can step outside it, sit still and go like, wow, watch your mind go crazy. Look at all the thoughts. Look how hard it's trying to continue contracting. And you can see that and you go like, whoa, my mind is powerful and it really wants to work. My body wants to contract. Contraction is the way of getting things done, but it's also a habit. It's a habit. And it's a good habit because that's why we get up in the morning and go to work and we get things done and we work and so forth. We think about things, we post, we tweet, we engage. It's great. But if you want to have balance in your life, contraction, expansion, you want to do both. So if you sit still and in silence, you can actually see how contractive you are. And just watch it and go, that's amazing. And it's good. I mean, as opposed to someone who just doesn't know how to initiate or get anything done in life, you're a person who thinks and wants to achieve and improve themselves. That's great. But just sit and watch it and realize that there's those two parts of you. There's the contractive part, but now you're going to develop the opposite side of that coin, the expansive part, which does nothing, which can be still and quiet. But there's going to be a little bit of a struggle within yourself, a war. The contractive part's going to want to keep contracting, so you have to develop this muscle, the ability to expand, so that you can, on demand, when you feel you are overly contracted, pull yourself out of that state and come to a place of stillness and silence. But it takes practice. This is why I keep a log. I keep a log of how many hours I do a day, a week, whatever, to motivate myself to put in a certain amount of time every day expanding, because it's an area that we neglect. And we're sort of lazy because it takes work to just expand on your own. We'd much rather have a drink or pop a pill or smoke a joint, which is a chemical expansion. It's induced by an external process. Or go to a masseuse, that's expansion. Or a therapist, and we talk out our problems, that's expansion. But we can do it ourselves, and we can do it naturally. But it takes discipline. It takes practice. So I recommend you practice. That's why I do this every day, a couple of times a day if I can. And I've been doing it for years and years, and I still feel like a beginner. I mean, the contractive habit in me is so strong, but I've begun to develop my ability to expand, and it feels great because when I need to, I can induce a state of peace, calm, and relaxation. It's very valuable for getting to sleep. It's good for your health. It's good for thinking clearly if you have to work or exercise. When you are more relaxed, everything is more effective. So it's a great practice to develop. Again, I do this for myself. I share it because I'm enthusiastic about the process. I really believe in it. And if it's for you, that's fantastic. If not, that's fine. If one session is enough to tell you what you need to know, fine. I'll see you in the next life. But in the meantime, I welcome you to participate with me to reinforce this new habit. Okay, so we've done the preliminary part of scanning. Squeeze, release, identify the feelings of contraction, expansion, deep breaths, expansive by nature. If you've been contracted, you've probably been holding your breath. So again, we're reversing that process. We're moving ourselves into an expanded state. And then stillness and silence, increasing length of time to get used to the idea of doing nothing, thinking nothing. And if you allow yourself, those thoughts will eventually just burn themselves out, and you will be left just sitting and doing nothing. There's been times when I've been sitting in stillness and silence when I forgot what I was doing, why I was here, what day it was. I distinctly went into a state of expansion where there were no definitions. I didn't need to know what day it was, what time it was, why I was here, what I was doing, where I was going, where I'd been. It didn't matter. I was in the moment. That's a completely expanded state. And it's very peaceful and calming and clarifying and relaxing. I feel better already. So now let's go into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique. The nuts and bolts, meaning the core of the technique. Remember, I started out the session by saying scanning is a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. So if the preliminary was a warm-up of sorts to extract us rather forcefully from our contraction, now we get into the core of the technique. If I had to sum up this entire technique with one gesture, I'd say it's going from this, squeeze your hand together, to this, relax. All we're doing is releasing muscular tension. And we're going to work our way through our body, through what I call the muscular zones of the body. We're just breaking down the body into sections to isolate and work on specific parts. And through a cumulative process, bring the body into a more and more and more and more and more expanded state. If you started out like this, you were slamming up against life and against your own thoughts. We're going to make ourselves become like this, more permeable, and we'll be able to merge more easily, more readily, more successfully with life. So, start with zone 1. On my count, I want you to release the muscles of your face. That's zone 1. We start with the face because we use it all the time. We're familiar with the feelings of the face, just like the hands. We're familiar with it, what it feels like to squeeze your face or release. We're very familiar with those muscles. So we'll start there. On my count, I want you to release as much tension as you can in your face. Just let it droop. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and release. You saw my face just droop. So this is an easy one to do. You can do it anywhere, anytime. You know, frequently we say, oh, I got to relax. I'm so uptight. I'm so uptight. And we think we've got to take some real drastic steps like pop a pill or take a shot or, you know, smoke a joint or go to the therapist, go to the masseuse or something. What we forget is that we can relax a little bit and it'll make a big difference. You could take any one of these steps I'm going to be doing today and just do them. Take a deep breath. When you say, I need a drink, so just go... You've just expanded. Sit in stillness and silence for 15 seconds. I just expanded. Any one of these. So we can do the face. You can be sitting somewhere and just go 3, 2, 1, and release. And that feeling of, that letting go of the muscular tension, that's scanning. It takes energy to contract a muscle. Muscles are held in a contracted state or released. And we tend to walk around with a certain low level of contraction all the time. Even when we're just sitting watching television, you might think you're relaxed, but if you really turn off the television and take a moment to really tune into where your body's at and start to incrementally release muscular tension, you'll be astounded. I'm always astounded at how much tension I was holding that I wasn't even aware of. Self-consciousness is one of the aspects of this technique, becoming more aware, bringing a heightened awareness of your state of muscular tension to your consciousness so that you can begin to control it. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. So there we go. So we're going to duplicate that release, that sense of release, again and again and again and again. And we're going to move through the body. So we're going to move now to zone 2, top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. You feel that? That's the core. I really want you, at this point in the lesson, we're about what? 20 minutes in. Right now, we've reached the crux of the technique, so I really want you to pay attention to your own feelings as you do this. That sense of, this snap is the turning off of the power, the flipping of the switch to that muscle so they can completely let go. That's the core of this technique. If you can master that and begin to apply that process of release throughout your body in various areas, you will have succeeded in scanning and bringing yourself into a more expanded state. Even if it's just 1%, any amount of expansion is the same amount of movement away from contraction. 1 degree towards expansion is 1 degree away from contraction, and it is cumulative. So if you can continue to apply this throughout your body, you will move into a more expanded state until you have what I call a breakthrough. A breakthrough is when your body finally goes, oh, I see where you're taking me, and it just lets go. And you'll suddenly just slip into this completely relaxed state. Your body will resist to a point, and finally, when it realizes this actually feels good, this is good for me, it will just let go. But you're persuading your body gently, incrementally to do that. The body, when it's contracted, is in a defensive mode. It doesn't want to let go. You're assuring it that it's okay. It's okay. Let go. Let go. Let go. Zone 3 is the back of the head. Let's do it again. 3, 2, 1, and release. Feel that release? Like a tight band just got loosened, like you had a belt around your head that was on the 4th notch and you just moved it to the 3rd. You released the tension on that belt. The back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. And now I just felt my shoulders drop. Every time as I start to move through this process, my body gets ahead of me and says, oh, I know where we're going with this. Sure, I'll join in. Shoulders are zone 5, and already they're starting to drop. So let that happen. Also, if you feel an impulse at any point in this process to take a deep breath, take it. Remember, breaths are expansive. And the more you relax, the more you're going to want to breathe. Your body's going to want to take advantage of that relaxed state to reoxygenate itself. If you've been contracted, you've probably been holding your breath and not getting enough oxygen. So now your body's catching up. Zone 3, the back of the head. Again, 3, 2, 1, watch for it. Here it comes, and release. Just dropped. And I felt that kind of sense of relief come around to the front of my face. Let's do the 3 zones. Face, top of the head, back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. Moving into zone 4, the neck. 3, 2, 1, and release. Great. Again, the neck. 3, 2, 1, watch for it, and release. And if you ever find yourself saying, I don't get it, I'm not feeling it, I don't understand, squeeze your hands together, 3, 2, 1, release. That feeling, 3, 2, 1, release. Or the face, 3, 2, 1, release. Just remind yourself, find little areas that you can control and let go of, and just do them repeatedly to, again, reinforce that sense of, that's scanning. Okay? Moving on to zone 5, the shoulders, which have already begun to drop, let them drop a little further. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, you're going to start to say, wow, I didn't realize I was holding tension there. I can let that go. Or, I'm holding tension there, I can't let it go, but I can think about letting it go. I can direct that thought towards that area. That's expansion. That's expansion. Because you're permitting yourself, even thinking about expanding is an expansion, because you're basically sending an instruction to your body that it's okay to let go. It's okay to let go. And the body may go, no. You say, that's okay. You can resist, but I'm just telling you, it's okay to let go. There's a scene in Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams says to Matt Damon, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And Matt Damon goes, no, I know. And he goes, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I don't know if you remember that scene. It always stayed with me, because what Robin Williams is doing is saying, no, I'm going to keep saying this until you understand. And finally, Matt Damon gives in and understands. And it's the same thing. You're saying to your body, it's okay to let go. It's okay. And the body goes, no, no, no. And you go, no, no, no. It's okay. It's okay. Let go, let go, let go. And eventually you will persuade your body to let go. The shoulders, let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. And I want to mention that I always feel resistance. I'm feeling it now. And I've been doing this for years. My body always resists this process because when you're contracted, your body wants to stay contracted. It's found what it considers a safe, defensive position. It doesn't want to let go of that because it feels it will risk becoming vulnerable. But what you discover when you're completely relaxed, you're actually less vulnerable. You're more responsive. You can deal with problems and issues more readily, more easily, because your muscles, your mind, everything's clear and available. So it's the opposite of what you think. When you're contracted, you're stiff, you're rigid, you're unresponsive, you're impermeable. Relaxation is the strongest place to be. So moving into zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, and release. And feel that, just looking for that little sense of ah. So now we've moved through 6 of the 8 zones. Let's do them all together. The face, the top of the head, the back of the head, the neck, the shoulders, chest, stomach, front of the waist. 3, 2, 1, let them all go and release. One of the benefits of practice is you begin to build the muscle memory of what it feels like to release muscular tension. The more familiar you are with a feeling, the more readily you can duplicate it. You can make it happen again. You get better at it. So keep practicing. Zone 7 is down the back and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And if you're not used to tuning into how your body feels, if that's strange to you, if it's like kind of like, oh, I don't want to know how I feel, it's weird, I'm having feelings, I'm having sensations, this makes me uncomfortable, push through that. That's the resistance, that's the contraction talking, okay? And you're going to come up against that and just push through it. You will feel resistance, I guarantee you. This process can be uncomfortable and challenging because you're up against yourself. And the will is strong. And habits are strong. We continue to want to do the same things the same way. We are literally changing our state of consciousness, our state of being. And sometimes our greatest enemy, our greatest opponent is ourself. We know that. Struggling with yourself and your own habits, for better or worse, can be very, very challenging. But if you make the determination, I'm going to push through this, you will push through it. One of the benefits of practice is that you become familiar with this process and you come to expect resistance. You go, oh yeah, there I am fighting myself. There I am not wanting to let go of this contraction, this thinking, this muscular tension. Yeah, that's me. I always do that. But I've done this enough times now that I know that I can push through it. And that will motivate you to keep going. Early on in the practice, you might get discouraged or frustrated. But that's why we practice again, just to get better and better and better at it. Never underestimate or devalue the success of even the smallest release. A breath, success, congratulations. Sitting still for 15 seconds, success, congratulations. It's really important that you give value to even the smallest change. Any amount of expansion is that much away from contraction. And that will keep you from getting discouraged with this process, because frequently you'll come away from a session going, I don't feel any better. I feel the same. But you develop the strength to continue the practice. And sometimes you'll have complete breakthroughs and feel completely relaxed, and that will encourage you to keep doing it. So just stay with it. Keep a log. The final zone, let's do 7 again. Down the back and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And just feel your pelvis unclench. Let it go. All those feelings of your body, very sensitive area, just let them go. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. Great. The final zone, zone 8, down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. Think about your feet for a second and see if you can kind of sense where they're at, the tension they're at. And if you're not used to focusing on parts of your body, you will get better at it. You will. As I said, some people say, I don't want to think about my body. I don't want to think that way. It just upsets me. I don't want to feel. I understand. But for this practice, you need to tune in to how you're feeling, how contracted you are, and your ability to change that through the opposite act, incremental muscular release, expansion. So think about the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. There they go. And again, the feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. Every one of the muscle groups of your body can be thought of as a fist, a clenched fist. So think of a clenched fist and just think of letting that go. And apply that to your feet, all the zones, the face. Let's do it all. Move one more time through. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. See that droop? The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Feel that droop. The back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. The neck, 3, 2, 1, here we go, and release. Feel that? The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and let them drop. You're the conductor. The body's the orchestra, and you're conducting. Release, 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 release. And your body will become more responsive as you practice. The shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and release. The chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and down the back and into the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and finally the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. We're going to take 5 deep breaths followed by 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. 5 deep breaths. The deepest one yet. 60 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Deep breath. When you think about all the things that you use or we use in the course of our lives to identify ourselves, to say this is who I am, this is what I am, to make ourselves feel secure, excuse me, and whole. Our job title, our name, our place in the world, either through work or socially, emotionally, and we think about those things. These are all contractions, and for a good reason. We need to contract. We need to identify ourselves. We need to have, as they say in the social networks, an identity, a presence, a brand. But you can exist, and you won't continue to exist if you let go of all of that. You can let go of all of that. Your name, the day of the week, what time it is, your identity, and still exist. You don't stop being a human being. So when you become completely expanded, the terrific thing is that for a moment, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long you decide, you can drop all of that. And remember, contraction takes energy. So you can stop exerting all that energy, defining yourself, counting your money, your possessions, your clothes, your identity, your style, your career, all those things you use to define yourself. It takes energy to maintain. That's what's called keeping it together. It takes energy. When you let go of muscular tension, you metaphorically let go of control. You let go of all those things you're holding on to identify yourself. And that can be scary. Well, who am I if I don't have my name, my title, my job, my home, my whatever it is, my possessions? Who am I? Well, you're just a human being. And as risky as it sounds to let go of all that, it's actually incredibly empowering. Because what you find is when you move into a completely expanded state, which I won't say it was completely expanded, but I moved closer to an expanded state just now for those 60 seconds. I forgot where I was. I forgot what day it was. I forgot my name. I forgot why I was here. All I was aware of in that moment was the beating of my heart. I could hear and feel the beating of my heart. That defines you as a human being. When your heart stops beating, you cease to be a human being. You go back to dust. Your brain can die, and you can continue to exist as a human being. But if your heart stops, you're not a human being anymore. You're done. So you basically come back to your essence, what I call your original self. It requires nothing but that you continue to breathe, which will happen automatically if you allow it. So you basically can just exist effortlessly. And it's very reassuring, it's very calming to know that you can come to that place and be fine. I'm fine. I'm still here. Now you're going to go back to your contractions, to your problems, your issues, your tasks, your challenges. Of course, those aren't going to go away. But for a moment, and as I like to say, at least a couple of times a day, you can come to a place where nothing is required of you. Nothing is expected of you. No energy needs to be expended. No judgments are made on you or by you. You are simply in the moment. It's an island, if you will, in a very frightening, rough sea. So you've stepped out of the water and onto this island just for a moment and found a place of peace and calm. Now in life we vacillate between contraction and expansion, so of course you will go back to your life and all the trials and tribulations and joys and sadness that comes with that, but you will have achieved balance. You will have moved into an expanded state, remembered what that other half of you is like, and that it's just as valid. And you will bring that back into your regular life. You will approach everything in your regular life, all your contractions, knowing that these are just the games we play, but that underneath it all, I'm just a human being. And I don't need to do any of this to just be. Not for a few moments anyway. And that will give you a sort of peace and calm that you will carry through your day. That's balance. You accept the challenges, you dive full on into life. You get agitated, you get angry, you work hard, you become tense, and you think hard, and you post, and you tweet, and you work, and you build, and you destroy. You do all that. You participate in life, but with the understanding that underneath all that is just a human being. How do you know that? Because you've been there. Because you visit that place at least a couple of times a day. And it will give you perspective, it will give you balance, it will give you calm, it will give you peace, it will give you joy. It will bring balance into your life. That's my goal. That's why I do it. Possibly, it will work for you as well. I hope so. That's why I share these techniques with you. Through the incremental release of muscular tension, it's that very simple, basic task. That very simple task, we can move ourselves into a more expanded state and all that that entails. Very simple. Very simple. I hope you've enjoyed this session. Like I say, I do these sessions for myself in the hopes that sharing it with others will somehow enhance their lives or give them something, a tool that they can use. I benefit from it. I take this half hour and I put it in my log like every other half hour or hour I spend during the day. Any time I can take expanding brings my life more into balance. I spend a lot of time contracting. I spend most of my day, 90% of my day contracting. So I try to make sure I get some expansion in every day to bring myself into balance. And just one other thought. Start to think about in the course of your day where you are on the spectrum. Am I contracted right now or am I expanded? And see if you can choose throughout the day, at least once or twice a day, to do something expansive, to substitute going on the internet or on your phone for 5 minutes with something that's expansive. And just start to substitute some contractive acts you take through the day. And for me, there's hundreds. Take a moment, instead of sitting down in front of your computer and starting to browse the web, take those 5 minutes and expand. Just start to substitute expansion for contraction and see if you can't bring some balance into your life. It's challenging. I understand. It's challenging for me. That's why I practice. But see if it makes a difference. That's it. It's called Sqanning, Sqanning. It's a relaxation technique which utilizes the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. That's all it is. Incremental muscular release. I'm going to post this on my Facebook page for a little while, and then I also move it over to the Sqanning Facebook page where all my sessions, this one and previous ones, are, if you want to watch it again or missed any of it. Sqanning. Do a search on Facebook and you'll find the page, and like and follow if you want alerts whenever there's new sessions. And I end every session with rule number one, the most important rule in life: love yourself. Love is the most expansive act you can take in the universe because it involves opening up, accepting what is, embracing all that is, becoming permeable. So start with yourself. This is what we've got. This is what we were given. And love even the parts of yourself that you find difficult to love, and you will come to a more expanded place. And when you have so much love in you that it's spilling out, You have extra, pass it around to whoever happens to be near you, because I guarantee you they will appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Have yourself a great day. Have a great, safe Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.